Thank you again, everyone, for being here with us. I feel very lucky to be able to moderate this panel. And I want to say that we will hold some time at the end for some Q&A. So please, as we're going along, be sure and jot down your questions because I think, you're really going to get a lot out of what is shared from our panelists, and I'm excited for the conversation to come. So I'm actually going to invite each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves before we dive into some of the questions. So Erica, if you'd kick us off.
Thank you so much. My name is Erica Giampietro, and I am the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Alliance for Early College.
My name is Patrick Sonato, and I am a current Early College Promise Program student, and I also work for the Massachusetts Alliance for Early College.
Scott Weatherford, Executive Director of Hybrid Programs at ASU Learning Enterprise, and I come from long time in the K-12 background, so I'll share a little bit more about what that perspective has been like for me in this area.
Thank you all. So this work is first and foremost about our students. So Patrick, if it's okay, I'm going to actually start with you. Can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself, specifically what you're passionate about and what you hope to do in the future?
Absolutely. So I'm very passionate about having everybody have an opportunity to get educated. I think it is the single most important step in our youth, getting their voices heard and becoming leaders in their communities. About myself, I started with the CTE program in my junior year. I earned, as far as pathway goes, I earned my certified nursing assistant certification through the CTE program and was able to get a job at Holy Family Hospital in Methuen working in the ER. And I have been working there for about a year, and my mom works upstairs and I visit her for lunch. And right now I joined the early college program in my senior year. It's very late compared to most of the other students. I only got about 16 credits. But luckily, I was able to join the Promise program thanks to my advisor. And I am now currently in the Promise program, and I have about one more year left in my education. And it has really helped me be able to kind of pace myself, especially given that I'm majoring in biology right now. And, STEM courses are definitely not easy. And it's been a lot nicer to be able to take only 3 courses as opposed to 5 as I did in my first semester.
Thank you, Patrick. It's really helpful to hear a little bit about your experience. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to understand what your passions were in high school, what your interests are, and what motivated you to think about early college and high school?
Absolutely. So I think I've always been a really passionate person. I've always had really high standards for myself. And in my senior year, as a part of the healthcare CTE program, they had us do our senior capstone project, where I went back to the middle school that I went to and started their GSA club. And that goes right along with my passion, once again, is helping our youth find their spaces and find their voices and really to raise up the next generation's leaders. And as for early college, I found out about it just walking through the library. There was a bunch of people on the computers taking their Accuplacer tests, and I asked my friend, hey, what was that? Like, I saw you sitting over at the Accuplacer computer, and he told me about the early college program, and later in my senior year, I ended up joining.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Erica and Scott, I'm going to put you all in the hot seat now. Can you start by giving us an introductory overview of your Accelerated Pathways model? And please include who you brought to the table to make this work successful.
Great. I am here to talk about what in Massachusetts we call the Early College Promise, and Patrick just spoke about this. The Promise is our version of Year 13 in Massachusetts. And in order to explain what the Promise is, I need to back up and talk a little bit about what years 9 through 12 in early college, high school looks like in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, early college is a deep partnership between a high school and a college. This is not, random acts of dual enrollment. I think about it as a marriage, really, between a high school and a college. In our case, students, and this is explicitly focused on students of color and students from low-income homes, take significant numbers of college coursework and college courses while they are in high school. They're strategically sequenced courses. They're transferable, like we talked about earlier. They count for both college and high school credit at the same time, and they're of no cost for students or their families. And really importantly, in addition to those courses, they're getting significant academic and guidance supports from both the college and the high schools to ensure that they thrive and that they're successful. So by the end of high school, they have college courses that reduce the time and cost of that ultimate degree, but they also graduate with the confidence and the skills and the mindsets to be successful in college and career. They see themselves and believe in themselves as college students, and I think really importantly, they see themselves and believe in themselves as highly capable members of a society full of opportunity. That's what early college looks like in Massachusetts. Over the last 5 years, it's really become more formalized. This is relatively new for us in Massachusetts. I had been at the Boston Public Schools for 7 years. I loved my job at BPS, but I had learned about this work in the early college space and saw the opportunity for real impact and the conditions for success, and felt it was the kind of thing you leave a job you love to go pursue. We'll talk more about some of those conditions in Massachusetts, but I feel we're really in a critical window of opportunity to take this work to the next level of scale and impact in our state. So that's very exciting. That's 9 through 12 early college. The early college promise is an extension of that work, where students like Patrick can opt to stay on for an extra year of high school to extend the benefits of that program. They take a full load of college courses that year. They look and feel like traditional college students. They spend their time at the college campus, but they continue to receive those great wraparound supports. And ultimately, our goal with time is they will be leaving year 13 with that associate's degree or with 2 years worth of credits towards their bachelor's degree. In Massachusetts right now, the promise is in pilot stage. So we have approval from the state. I think, Ryan, you called it a handshake agreement to do this work with up to 10 programs, and we are now working with 9. We have a few years. I talk about this as the prove it years for Massachusetts. We have a few years to prove the concept, and then the legislature is going to make a decision about whether to lift the cap and see this really scale. Of course, I believe fervently that we will do that. So that's where we are. A little bit of background on the Massachusetts Alliance for Early College. I always describe ourselves as collaborative independent. We are not a part of the state agencies, but we're collaborative and independent. I feel really strongly that these are important adjectives for us. On the independent side, we can do things that a state agency can't do. We can advocate, and we can advocate hard. I'm a registered lobbyist. We can set big goals and be very bold in a way that our colleagues at the state might want to, but feel extra pressures not to do so. We can develop relationships with programs that feel really trusting and authentic because we aren't there to designate them or to evaluate them. Our biggest capital is the trust we have with our program leaders on the ground, and we hold it sacred. That's the independent part. On the collaborative side, I tell our team, every chance we have to support our colleagues at the state, we take it. Go the extra mile, because we can't do our work unless they are successful and unless they see us as a partner. We want them to share data that maybe hasn't gone public yet. We want them to give us a heads up about when they're going to be making an announcement to our program, so again, we can reinforce our trust with our partners on the ground. So really importantly, collaborative and independent. We do 4 key things at the Alliance. The first is coalition building. We have more than 100 organizations who are part and members of the Alliance. We're all focused and fired up by a big goal to close the college success equity gap in Massachusetts by 1/4 through the scaling of high quality early college in Massachusetts. In this realm of coalition building, we do student voice, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, later, and really activate the field. The second thing we do is capacity building. We don't want anyone starting from scratch. In Massachusetts, we now have almost 60 high schools and 27 colleges that are taking part in early college. We're here to spread best practices and resources. We're launching something right now called Early College University, where we're bringing together mature expert leaders of early college programs. We're pairing them with new program directors and really just creating this sort of community of practice. The third thing we do is policy and advocacy. So we work with the legislature, we work with the state agencies on both budget and policy to see this thrive. And the last thing we do is innovation. That's why we're here today. We're looking across the country to see what other states are doing that we can bring to Massachusetts. So we at the Alliance are sort of facilitating this early college promise pilot. And I think that's some background on our innovation.
Thank you, Erica. Scott?
Yeah, thanks, Erica. Our program you already heard a lot about from Maria, and so I'm not going to redo that with you. She did such a great job. Thank you, Maria. One of the things that Sylvia just asked was, who did we bring to the table? And so I want to emphasize, as a national partner, super important for us to have local folks who are place-based, who could be our liaisons, who could really help us understand what the issues are in their community, what their community and their stakeholders were interested in. So Bonnie from KIPP, Texas, was so instrumental with our partner there. In Yakima, our local partners, and then in Phoenix, the same thing. Very different communities, very different families, student issues, local workforce issues, what would be the best for them there. Lots of different things that we had to figure out, and we couldn't do it as a national partner without that local help. So those liaisons really helped us interact with their stakeholders, make some key early decisions for us that were real important. So for example, two of the partners really early on identified our families are not as interested in the 13th year, like Ryan kind of shared earlier. They wanted to shoot for getting the A done by the 12th, into the 12th grade year. One of the partners did want to continue on with the 13th year. Within our program, one of the things that we're excited about is within our AA, we have mapped to mastery certificates built into the AA. So there's really a chance for students to get a certificate, then the AA, and then on to a BA. And those certificates, right now we have Google IT, so we partnered with Google. The Google IT certificate through ASU also maps to 4 computer science courses with our computer science department. We have advanced business data analytics, and we have project management. So really working with those liaisons to figure out which of those made the most sense for those communities. One of the communities went with Google IT, another with advanced business data analytics, and then the third partner is looking to figure out how they could offer all 3 choices and potentially other choices in those certificate stacks when the students get to those courses later on in their pathways. So I think we've really found that having those as a national partner, having local partners who can help us figure out what makes the most sense, because we certainly don't know that, and we're not going to pretend like we do, and that's why folks like Bonnie are so important to our success.
Thanks, Scott. Patrick, I'm coming back to you. I know you shared that you became aware of the opportunity just sort of walking through the library, but I'm curious to know, was there a person who was particularly helpful in getting you going on early college and in helping you to be successful?
So my early college advisor, Diane McCarthy, was definitely quickly became kind of like family to me, and she helped me make so many decisions about early college, FAFSA, any advising issues, even issues that I was having with my high school courses and my course load. She was very fundamental to, I think, my early college success as well as my ongoing success in the Promise program.
What were some of the things that she did that were so helpful?
She was there for me. She was always there for me at her office, and anytime that I needed to, I could send her an email or I could stop by, say hi, talk about whatever we needed to talk about, and she would always have good advice and a comfy chair.
I love that. All right, Erica and Scott, as we've been talking about, we are focused on scale in this work. and want to develop effective ways to bring these opportunities to more students. What are some of the barriers that stand in the way of scaling these opportunities? Scott, can you start for us?
Sure. We're here till like 4, right? I can just keep. No, I'm just kidding. So barriers. There are some states that have really kind of open language when it comes to dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, and who can provide that to students and high schools. So, for example, it makes it pretty clear in those states, four-year universities, colleges can also be someone who provides dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, et cetera, opportunities. I keep using all those terms because, as many of you know who work nationally, it's really fun, right? Every state calls it something different, has different rules, different regulations, et cetera. So that makes it really complicated. So that in itself is a barrier. The fact that there are not just 50 different ways of interpreting this, but then you get down to even the local ways, right? Like some community college districts will have one set of entry for students to go to their community college. You heard Patrick mention the AccuPlacer. One might be using AccuPlacer, one might be using GPA. It's really complicated for schools, for students, for families, and for those who are interested in helping and providing an additive, being a provider, to figure all of those different things out. So that's definitely one of the barriers. I would say that we heard earlier that Texas was identified, right, as a place of opportunity. The reason Texas is being identified as a place of opportunity is because they've written their language in a way that it is much more open. There's a lot more opportunities for schools to add a multitude of partners. So none of the schools that are talking to ASU are saying, hey, we want you to come in and replace College Board or replace our community college partner. They're not interested in doing that. They want to add more opportunities for students, right? And so we need language at that state or even national level that really helps reduce those barriers and enables more people to be able to come in and add. So Patrick mentioned earlier his own personal story. I'll just share that I have 3 kids, one of whom I have a 13-year-old who's texting me. He's at one of the museums right now having fun. They're going to get to go to their high school when he's done next year into 8th grade. 3 different high school choices. He's going to be just assigned to one of those. One of those has 4 CTE pathways, and 3 of them are mapped with their local community college so that in that CTE pathway, they can get community college credit, which is awesome. The other 2 high schools do not. They have CTE pathways. They've been unable to map those pathways to community college credit. One of them has a computer science pathway using the same Project Lead the Way curriculum as the other high school that has the engineering pathway that did get it mapped. The difference is simply that at that community college, the department chair for engineering said, I love this, I want this to happen, it's going to happen. The department chair for computer science said, nope, high school kids can't do that. The principal of that second school then went out to another local community college. That community college said, yeah, we're on board, we want to do this. First community college heard about that, came back and said, you're not allowed to do that, we're your only provider. That principal said, well, but you said no, and they said, I realize that. Maybe that department chair will be retiring soon, and then you can come back and we can try again. The reason why I know this is I was that principal. So why am I here today at ASU? Maria shared that charter earlier. It's about whom we include, not who we exclude, right? We want to be inclusive. We want every student to have all of these opportunities. It shouldn't matter which of those 3 high schools you randomly got selected in, right? My own kids are going to be okay. My wife actually is a tenured community college professor. I went to community college. I love community colleges, so I want to make that clear. My kids are going to be okay. We have enough social capital that we're going to be able to figure this out for them and navigate the system, but that's not fair. Every single student in all those high schools should have access to those credits. They're going to help them be able to get to college with less debt, less time in college, and access to those other certificates that are hopefully going to be life-changing for their families and their communities.
To talk about barriers in Massachusetts, you need to also back up one step and give you another flavor for the context in Massachusetts. In some states, early college is mostly operating wall to wall. Full high school, doing early college, every student there is an early college student. That is not the case in Massachusetts. We are operating programs within comprehensive high schools. And this is both a huge advantage and a huge challenge. And what I mean by that on the advantage side is scale. we are bringing programming where students are. Lowell High School, one of the biggest high schools in the state, 900 students per grade. They're doing early college, and at this point, they're reaching about 150 students per grade. They want to be reaching 250 in the next year and a half. That is really good. On the flip side, the challenge of doing programs within comprehensive high schools is you are trying to build this on top of an already standing set of systems and structures and culture, and that is a challenge. So, to this question of the challenges to scale, I'm going to talk about both some of the adaptive and mindset challenges and some of the structural technical challenges. On the adaptive and mindset challenge front, I think my favorite part of my job is when I see people's attitude change about early college. And here's an example. When we were setting out to start this work of the Early College Promise, it was in the middle of the pandemic. And I was calling superintendents of large urban gateway city districts in Massachusetts and saying, I know right now you're like trying to figure out how to get the kids to school and how to space seats with 6 feet between them, but would you want to try something brand new for students? And, it was just awesome. The reactions, you'd think, no, we have our hands full. And so many of these excellent superintendents came forward and said, yeah, let's try something new. One of the most challenging conversations we had was with Salem State University. And I'll actually just pull up a picture here so you can see. In Massachusetts, these are the programs that are currently piloting the 5th year. Salem State University is a 4-year program, 4-year college in the pilot, and they're working with Lynn Public Schools. And when I spoke with their leadership about this, they were very resistant. This was a long period of time to get them to come on board. And a lot of what they were thinking was, we don't really know if this is good for us. Why should we do this? Shouldn't the student just graduate from high school and come? Then we can just use our own systems and structures. We can support them the way they want, and we're going to get full Pell. The revenue for us is going to be greater. And we said, give us a year. We're going to open up. Everybody in Massachusetts and probably state countrywide, right, is having enrollment challenges. We're going to open up and bring more students to you than you would typically receive. And they're going to be successful because they're coming from a great set of experiences in 9 through 12. We had a community of practice meeting last week, and the leader from Salem State University was in the meeting, and she said, I have to say, Early College Promise is the shining star right now at Salem State University. In their first year, they had 25 students who piloted the program. And these are not students who would have gone to Salem State University otherwise. These are not students who, prior to early college, were even on a path to college. 18 of those 25 students are matriculating next year at Salem State full-time. 6 more of them wanted to but couldn't because of immigration status issues, which they're working on. But she said, how fast can we double? How fast can we triple? They want to see this happen now. So I mentioned that as an example. Those adaptive mindset challenges, we are seeing them change. I like the toe dip strategy. Give us a year, and then let's see. On the technical side, one of the key challenges for us is credit accumulation. In order for this to work mathematically, you need 30 credits by the end of 12th grade, and then you need another 30 in your year 13. To get to 30 credits or a full year of college in high school, when you're starting in a comprehensive high school that already exists, you're not building this from scratch, is a big challenge, and it's the one that kind of keeps us up. But we have examples of this working. Lawrence High School in Massachusetts is building a program where most students are finishing with 27 to 30 credits by the end of high school. So we're seeing, you're nodding. Do you know Lawrence High School? Oh, fantastic. They're great, and they're setting the stage. Haverhill High School, where Patrick went, is getting up to those levels. We're seeing Lowell High School is starting to get up to those levels. So really exciting to see it happen, but man, is it a challenge. When I worked at the Boston Public Schools, I led negotiations with the teachers union and for 2 years, and came out with a 5-minute flexibility on some scheduling which was a huge win. And so I know how hard it is to align schedules between a high school and a college. That's the kind of technical challenge that we're working with. But when the mindsets are there, anything is possible.
Thank you both for sharing those challenges. Sticking with the challenges theme, Patrick, from your perspective, what are some of the challenges that need to be addressed so that more students will be able to take advantage of accelerated pathway opportunities?
I think awareness. Awareness is a huge problem. The only reason that I found out about the early college program was from my peers who were in the early college program. And at Haverhill High School, that is true for many students as well. And I think if it is advocated for throughout the community so that not only students know, but parents know, and parents get excited about getting their kids into the early college program, then students will be able to have a lot more success in their programs and will be able to experience this pathway as it's meant to be.
I appreciate you bringing in parents into the equation, Patrick. So again, this is for Erica and Scott. As you work to bring this work to more students, how are you capturing and incorporating student and family voices into the work?
Yeah, I can go first. So as part of the generous grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we were able to do site visits to our different locations. And during those site visits, we were able to do focus group, individual group interviews with students, faculty. We've been doing quite a bit of surveying of students as well. And at the end of the first year, we're going to be doing focus groups and surveys with parents as well. That information has been really helpful. So for example, in the Houston area, we mentioned earlier 11, 12, well, maybe I didn't mention this, but Houston started off as 11th, 12th, and then 13th, and has already kind of decided in launching this and looking at how it's going so far that credit accumulation in just 11th, 12th is tough to do. So now with that additional feedback and seeing how it's going, looking at what would it look like if they started in 10th a little bit earlier, potentially even what would some 9th grade courses look like. Another one of our partners, through feedback from students and families, they did start in 9th, started kind of like with not a toe dip, but just diving in, and now are going to pull the leg out a little bit, maybe figure out what a little bit more of a program would look like on their end as our partner to really provide more of that, like what does it look like for a 9th grader to get ready for college, and using some of our intro to college and career courses, and then pushing into the more typical college courses.
Our student engagement, I think of it both sort of at the local level and at the state level. The local level, I can't underscore enough, agree with Scott. This design sprint Accelerate Ed experience that we had was awesome. We brought together 5 of our partner pilot programs, and a big component of the work was student interviews and focus groups and surveys, and the work really came alive. So I can't say enough about that. And that's continuing to happen at the local level because people saw the value in doing so. At the state level, we at the Alliance are running an early college policy fellowship. Patrick mentioned a moment ago that he is employed by the Alliance. We are hiring students while they are in college on a part-time basis to work with us. And that means we always say we have a core value at the Alliance, always add value. We need it to be good for our students. We need it to be good for us. We pay above minimum wage. We make it flexible to work with school hours and really focus on building social capital and skills for our students. This is good for their own career development. It's also really good for us because we get their voices. We get to know about their experiences. We get to bring Patrick to an experience like this, and it shapes our work. We also, just last week, got great news that ASA is going to be providing some funding for us to add a new employee at the Alliance to take our student organizing work to the next level.
Congratulations. That is great news. So Patrick, one last question I have for you is how did taking dual enrollment classes in high school prepare you for college, and what does this goal of college success mean for you and your family?
So they really exposed me to kind of the course load. That was one of my biggest surprises first year going into my STEM classes. I I was a lot more prepared and ready for the course load than somebody who hadn't taken the courses would have been. I was taking Calculus 1, cell biology, general ecology, like a lot. I was taking a lot of classes, music theory, and it was just a lot of work, a lot of time at the desk, a lot of being, on my A game at all times, and it was very draining, but I was prepared, and that made a lot of the difference in, not just completely dropping the ball and kind of, saying this is too much for me. I kind of had the expectation, and that mattered a lot in keeping me there and keeping me where I am right now. And as far as what college means to me and my family, my mom is a first-generation college student, and my dad did not have the opportunity to go to college. So it really is an honor, and it is absolutely core to my future. I think there's no other option for me. Like, college is my future, and it's how I'm going to be successful, and that's how I'm going to bring myself to that next level to be competitive among my peers.
Well, Patrick, I think I can safely say we're all rooting for you, right? As I close us out here with our questions before turning it over to the audience, Erica and Scott, I want to bring it back to scale, because we know that to have an impact, scale is really going to be a key lever to enable more students to be able to participate in these opportunities. So Erica, I'm just wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about how you've intentionally connected your efforts to a complementary effort by the state legislature to enable the expansion of accelerated pathways statewide and ensure that they are sustainable long-term.
Yes, I think of our work with the legislature in 3 ways. Number one, it is get this toe in and prove it, which I'll explain. The second is find our champions, get a bill and a budget. And the third is to flood them. And so I'll explain what each of these means. On the first one, sort of the toe in and prove it, this is the pilot. This is the Early College Promise pilot. We didn't need law. We knew we had champions in our state agencies who would be willing to try something. So we took advantage of that. We have this handshake agreement to try this. Now we need to prove it. That's step one. Step two is find our champions, get a bill, get the budget. We have a number of legislative champions, and they're growing all the time. And we're working on a college and high school bill that has gone through some back and forth. We're continuing to push on it, and of course pushing on the budget. One more piece of context, Ryan talked earlier about accountability. We did work with the state to change the high school graduation formula for Early College Promise so that those schools would not be penalized for keeping students for an extra year. We also worked with the state to get funding for Early College Promise. These students are bringing in the same K-12 per student funding as they would as a traditional 9 through 12 student. And the third is flood them. So we are the Alliance. We have students across the state. We have leaders across the state who are passionate about this. A week and a half ago, we held Early College Day at the State House. We had more than 200 students and leaders from across the state join us at the State House. They visited over 150 legislative offices and shared their voices and their messages. We had so much positive feedback. I had a number of one-on-ones with legislators that afternoon, and they just said this was incredible. We also chose a room that was pretty small and extra packed it for the optics of that. But in any case, flood them. Let them know how many people really want to see this be successful.
Thanks, Erica. And Scott, can you share with us what is the value of having a national university like ASU take the lead in this particular model for scaling accelerated pathways for high school students?
Well, as Maria mentioned earlier, 170,000 students, 60,000 or so, over half online. ASU has been in the online space and doing things at scale for a long time now, well before the pandemic. So we have so many systems in place and kind of institutional knowledge about what it looks like to bring to these courses and serve students, that we're happy to share and again be an additive option for all of these high schools. So for example, one of the things that my wife, who is an English professor, and I are constantly talking about is how are we making things better and more accessible for students all the time. When she's doing that at her department, she's talking about her individual class, maybe within her department. At ASU, we have hundreds, sometimes thousands of students in the same course every term. That enables us on the data side to be able to really hone in very quickly and look at very specific assignments. What's going on with this specific assignment where a student is potentially dropping off here? Or maybe even subgroup data. Why is this quiz more difficult for one group of students than another? What's going on there? Our instructional designers, our faculty can work together to eliminate those barriers. That's something that is, something that we have that I'm sure everyone would love to have, and it's just by virtue of our scale that we're able to do that. And that's exciting for us to be able to work with schools and be able to share some of that information with them. The other thing that's helpful is at scale and with our asynchronous courses, especially high schools that are more rural, don't have the ability maybe for the students to go to the campus because the campus is 90 minutes, 2 hours away. That's something that we're able to do as well and able to work with those school districts. Depending again on the way the state rules and regulations are worded, some school districts have to, the only way you can do dual enrollment is if you also have a classroom teacher that meets a certain level of requirements. Because our courses are taught by an ASU faculty, the ASU faculty has that credential. We can work with any great teacher you have, provide them facilitation guides. They're essentially co-teaching the class, but we've eliminated some of those credentialing barriers. Some of those scales, though, I would say at scale, even for us, some of the barriers, though, and the things that we're going to be working on over the next several years as we look to work with even more schools are going to the states that do have the more open language. And that makes me on some levels, some level disappointed. But I will share with one of our partners, when we started this program, they sent out a really, excited press release about the program. Someone at the State Office of Education, kind of lower management level, saw that, reached out to the school district and said, this doesn't fit into my understanding of the 3 buckets in this state, therefore you're not allowed to do it. It took us about 2 weeks, a ton of my time and a bunch of other people's time to have a bunch of meetings till we got all the way to the very top of that Department of Education. And the person finally met with everybody, said, wait, you're giving free college courses to students? This is more? Why would we not do this, right? But I'll be frank, I don't have the time to do that for all 50 states, right? So that's why we need help at a national level at scale to make it more fair and more open so that students everywhere can be accessing these different options. And again, adding on, right? We want robust community college partnerships, AP, IB, national partners like ASU, other national partners. We just want more. Sometimes it feels a little bit competitive in this space, and that drives me nuts. Right? It's not a zero-sum game. We don't need just 2 more models or 2 more partners. We need 50 more models of how to do this right for students. We need 100 more partners. And that's what we're excited to continue to do moving forward.
Thank you so much, Scott. Agree. We just want more. Well, I'm very excited to open it up for questions from the audience. Please signal to us that you have a question, introduce yourself, and tell us what organization you're with.
This question is actually for Erica. We heard a little bit about what some states have done to increase the transferability of credits. Some of the students are not going to get to a 60 credit mark, or if they're only taking a 4 credit sequence. How are you dealing with that within Massachusetts? And then what are some other promising structures that would allow you to work with a variety of different institutions without students feeling that, I've got to go to that place where I've taken these 9 credits or however many they acquire?
We're lucky. We have something called the Mass Transfer Block. All of our state universities and community colleges accept the credits that are in this Mass Transfer Block. That's a good start. I will share that a key challenge we're running into right now, as we are pushing further and further down the credit path and aligning more and more with careers, is that the deeper you get into your college coursework in a good way, the more likely you are to take classes that are no longer in that transfer block. This is a big rub for us right now with the state. we are encouraging programs to build highly aligned career pathways. And we're getting some pushback that those courses that are outside of the block would not be sort of reimbursed as a part of this model. So it's a challenge that we're running into right now. We're really at the precipice of trying to figure that one out. But the key point is we do have that mass transfer block. These courses are transferable across our public system.
Yeah, that's a great question, Rich. And I would just add that a lot of the states have the interstate agreements with each other, but again, at a national policy issue, I would argue that Patrick should be able to take his credits from whatever college, Salem State, it doesn't matter. And if he wants to transfer to UCLA down the road, UCLA should not say you need to redo any of these courses. Those should all count for Patrick. And we need that nationwide, right? Like different colleges. Yeah. Yeah. Different colleges shouldn't have that level of power to deny student access to the credits that they've already fairly earned, right? Yeah.
Kimberly?
Hey, Kimberly Hanner. I think I'm loud enough too. Rich. Erica, I was really excited to hear that you were talking about students who wouldn't have normally gone to college doing these programs, because often when we hear about the programs, you're taking super high achieving kids and you're getting them college credits, which is good, but not moving the needle. And so can you talk about the program design there and any challenges you faced creating something that specifically reached those students?
Yeah, this is core to the work in Massachusetts. In order to become a designated early college program by the state, a high school and a college work together in a 9-month application process. A part of that application process, one of the 5 criteria they need to prove, is that they are providing nearly fully open access. So this cannot be only for the top performing students. We as an alliance feel this is critical, it's core, it's fundamental to the work. How it's actually working on the ground is that these schools are doing, 9th and 10th grade, here, let me show. 9th and 10th grade is about preparation. It's significant, rigorous college coursework preparation before really jumping in with the more deep college coursework. So that's happening. It's structural to the design of the programs. In Massachusetts, we have about 6,000 students who are currently taking part in early college. 2/3 of those students are Black and Latino. Just over half are from low-income homes. If we are not reaching the right students, this program will not continue. It is a core component of what we do, and it's kind of built into the fabric of it.
Scott, can you speak to that with Accelerate ASU as well?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons, I'm going to speak on behalf of Bonnie, but one of the reasons I think that Bonnie has identified why they were looking for another partner to add to their already great college-going programs they had was because some of the state regulations in Texas related to who can and cannot take. And I don't think it's the Accuplacer, is it the ACT they use? Or thank you. So students have to score a certain level on there. And then they had all of these students that they have identified. These are students who would benefit from early college programs. We think can do the work. They're just not good at this specific type of test taking. And so our courses enable them to take an English 101 course, put it with one of their great high school English teachers, spread it out in a way and scaffold and support it with those wraparound supports that enable students to, again, right? Like we haven't even really talked about this today, but one of the biggest advantages of doing these programs is that you are having those students in high school complete those barrier courses that we know are such a big deal to college completion, right? So you're done with the high school English, college English and college math before you let them go. What a huge advantage for them to be able to ultimately have complete completion of their college degree, right? So that's a big point of, I think, emphasis moving forward for us is advocating on behalf of schools to have more ability to use courses like ours to expand who gets to take dual enrollment, because everybody should, especially with all of the high school's resources that they have to support those students properly.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikki Williams. I'm actually a part of ASU. I'm one of the site directors for ASU Local here in DC, and my background is actually early college, so I love this conversation. So, question about the focus groups, I don't know, maybe in Houston that you all had. So one of the challenges that I remember facing with families and students was getting them to stay that 13th year. So for Massachusetts, what was, and maybe Houston, what was your, not necessarily solution, but how did you encourage the students and the families to stay that 13th year? From the student side, it's more of the social aspect of, I want to graduate with my class. But outside of, hey, you get free college, like how do you navigate that?
Two things. Year one was blood, sweat, and tears. And year two is the power of peer persuasion. So year one was talking to 70 students to get 25, compelling them about the benefits. Also structurally making this so that it didn't feel like a 13th year, but it felt like the first year of college. What I mean by that is students could walk the stage at high school graduation. They might not be handed their diploma, but they're handed something even better. It was a certificate, and it looks like an honor, and it is an honor, and it's celebrated. So they didn't have to miss out on things like prom or graduation. Second year, they heard about it from other students who had done it before and had glowing reviews. Lowell High School, who I mentioned earlier, had started out with 30 students in year one. They could easily triple that in year two, and the only thing stopping them is structures and financing. But they'll get there. But I think it's just a great example of the fact that it was so much easier in year two because kids told other friends.
I would add that, awareness doesn't equal buy-in, and I think for new programs like this, it's super important to get everybody on the high school campus bought in that this is something that is additive, and not necessarily like this isn't the best fit for every single student, but this is a great fit for some of our students. And so college counselors on campus, right? If the college counselors aren't on board, it's not happening. It doesn't matter who else wants it to happen or how much money you have. You have to get those college counselors on board. The principal needs to be able to communicate it to families, teachers, everyone else. And then, really making it, the 13th year part needs to be on the back end and invisible. And for the families and the communities and the students, it needs to look like, I think, Bonnie, you're going to call it KIPP College. And the kids have started calling it that. I love that. And we're just their college partner, but for all intents and purposes, they're graduating, they're walking, and now they're off to college. And then we know on the back end all the other stuff that is happening to enable the funding to take place to make it work.
Patrick, I wonder if you would want to add anything from the student's perspective.
Please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, so for example, in the CTE program, they're starting to do a lot of outreach to the middle schools. And I remember going into my freshman year, I knew about the CTE program because they had come to the middle school and told me about it. So, and they also had student representatives who were in the program come and talk. So that was probably one of the most important things in terms of Scott said awareness does not equal a buy-in. But a lot of times when you're having the students come bring awareness to other students, that equals a lot more buy-in than if it's just, an adult talking to you again, because it can really feel like, when the military recruiters come in, they're just posted up in the side of the lunchroom and you're kind of like, oh, okay, I'm just going to walk by them and they're all scary looking, but you just, so I think if one of the most important parts of getting students into the program and getting them bought in is having other students to advocate for it and really see themselves in the youth.
I think I saw one hand over here.
Hi, Erin Bebo, CityWorks DC. I have a follow-up to Nikki's question for Erica. Do the students graduate with their high school diploma in grade 12, and then for that year 13, is the funding stream coming from per pupil?
The students don't graduate with a diploma at the end of 12th grade. That allows the student to be continued to be counted in the high school count. They bring the K-12 funding in year 13. If, again, core value here, only add value. If for a student it's not working out in year 13, they need to leave in January, they can just get their high school diploma at that point in time.
All right, so I'm going to take the honor of the last question, which is what final advice would each of our panelists offer to other communities, to the folks in this room looking to build and scale accelerated pathway opportunities?
Find the champions and then grow from there?
I think working on the local level, starting from the grassroots, starting from the communities that are actually supporting this program and the kids that are attending this program is really the most important part of getting the program to start and to really butt into something bigger once you get more state and eventually federal support.
I'm going to age myself here. Does anybody remember that book, Who Moved My Cheese? Just be ready to move a lot of people's cheese. What we're trying to do is paradigm shifts for a lot of folks, and it doesn't take one conversation or two conversations, but it's worth it, right? And it's exciting, but it's going to take some work for sure.
Well, everyone, please join me in thanking our awesome panelists.